3 years in Greece. I was a teenager at the time.
Amazing.
It was really, really, you know, you have. Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and this is The Current Buzz. Today we have Rufus Gifford with us. He's running for Congress. He's a candidate for Congress in the 3rd Congressional District in Massachusetts. So we're going to have, I guess, a few candidates in the next few weeks talking about their experiences. But I want to tell you one thing. Rufus was the ambassador to Denmark. So we're going to talk about a little ambassadorship stuff. And he was ambassador to Denmark, Faroe Islands, and Greenland, right?
That's right.
And you went to Faroe Islands, you flew there. Mm-hmm. How did you fly there? Did you fly in a Danish military plane, or was that?
Not to the Faroe Islands. You actually fly commercial from Copenhagen. Okay. But to Greenland, I have taken military planes before. There are certain parts of Greenland that are so isolated. It's huge. It's the largest island in the world. So there are parts of the island that are so isolated that you actually have to take military transportation.
I was surprised to see that there's 186 military personnel stationed in Greenland.
Yeah.
American military, yeah. We used to have a base called Thule Air Force Base in the north of Greenland. Do we still have that?
Still there. Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think virtually the entire American military presence is in Greenland.
Probably.
And strategically important. So we have scaled back our military presence in Greenland since the end of the end of the Cold War. Right. If you can think about how close Greenland is to Russia, mm-hmm. You can see its geographic significance vis-a-vis sort of Cold War issues. We've scaled it back and closed a good number of our bases. But Thule is still incredibly important and something that is actually we're reinvesting in.
Are we?
Yeah, we are. Oh. Mostly from a strategic...
Is it a listening device, or is it's still an air base where planes land?
It's a bit of both,
okay.
Frankly. Yeah, it's a bit of both. And we're using it, it's what we call is sort of mixed use. So you see a scientific presence there to a certain extent.
Okay.
NASA has had some, I believe they even tested one of the Mars rovers up near Thule, because the terrain is, as they claimed, is as close to Mars as you can get on the planet. It is otherworldly. It's amazing up there.
I bet.
I've been there a couple of times.
Right, interesting. So, from my understanding, from the literature I read and going online, that you were a rock star in Denmark. What was the reason? See, I lived in the diplomatic community, and you're supposed to forge relationships with the natives, so to speak. And my understanding is that's what you did, right?
Yeah. It was very simple, I think, and I'll dispute any of the rock star things, but it's just only because it's what I tried to do is the job in the most active way I possibly could.
Right.
And this was why, is that when I first arrived, and I think probably most of your viewers, they say, oh, you were an ambassador. That sounds great, but they have no idea what I did.
Right.
They had no idea what the job of an ambassador is.
Well, tell us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think you probably know because you lived in the diplomatic community, but so few people did.
Right.
And that there was so much good we were doing. Mm-hmm. We were investing in, we were helping American companies thrive in Denmark. We were helping encourage Danish companies to invest in the United States. We were working on student exchanges and cultural exchanges and working with entities like NATO to ensure that military partnerships were as strong as possible. Mm-hmm. And just, keeping ourselves close as countries and governments and militaries and businesses, and most importantly, people. But people didn't understand that work. So there was this sense that we ambassador played a lot of golf, went to a lot of cocktail parties, but what we did was so much more important. So what I wanted to do was really tear down the walls and humanize the work and have conversations with people in a way that they could relate to and they could understand the work that we were doing. And what was so cool about it is that the results were when we started doing this, people who had never paid attention to diplomacy before started paying attention.
Wow.
People who had never cared about public service before.
You're talking about Denmark.
Danes, yeah.
Danes,
so
yeah.
I would have young Danes stop me
Yeah.
on the street and say, "You make me want to be a public servant. You made me want to be a
Wow.
diplomat," and that's so cool.
Wow.
And that is really the essence of what an ambassador should be.
Right.
Look, if you're an ambassador to Pakistan, your job is going to be different than if you're ambassador to Denmark, where obviously our relationship is very, very strong and it's peaceful. But what can we do? There were a lot of people when I first got that job and said, "Oh, you've got the best job in the world," and it is the best job in the world.
I think so.
But I was 38 years old when I went there,
Right.
and I didn't want to just go play golf and go to cocktail parties. I wanted to do real work and invest in the community and see what we could do to actually make this relationship, which was great, even better. And that was, to me, about investing in the human-to-human relationship. And this is something that I want to bring to this campaign
Right,
as well.
good point, yeah. If I say chief of station, does that ring a bell?
Sure does.
It sure does, okay.
Yes, indeed.
Did you have a relationship with chief of station?
I did. So the chief of station...
Does he report to you, or does he report to Washington?
Technically, he reports to me.
Technically.
Yeah. So
chief of station, in case someone doesn't know, is a CIA chief in Denmark.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the intelligence services will all have a presence at our
FBI
embassies.
too?
FBI,
Okay.
DEA.
Okay.
And depending on the embassy and what part of the world they're in, say if you were stationed in South America or the Caribbean, the DEA presence, the Drug Enforcement Agency, would be much more significant.
Right. Understandable.
But the partnership, our intelligence services that existed in my embassy were there in large part to build relationships with the Danes, because we had a very good intelligence relationship with the Danes.
They have a good intelligence system.
Very much so, and they're strong allies, and so
they are.
The goal
Very strong.
Yes, yeah. So the goal there, like it would be in most countries in Europe, would be to just to encourage and strengthen those alliances and really invest in the partnership. But these guys were the best in the business. Station chief, FBI guys, which we call our legal attachés. They were
That's
phenomenal.
their cover.
A little bit. Yeah. It's exactly. Yeah.
So then you have the charge of the affairs.
Yeah.
He's second in charge, right?
Yeah. Deputy,
he or she?
She. Actually, I had a man for the first couple of years and a woman for the last.
All right. And then there's first secretary, second secretary, third secretary.
It depends on the embassy. And it's the concept. So you'll have a political and economic officer. You'll have various people who do various things. Again, depending on the embassy you work in. And a military presence, of course.
A military attaché, basically air attaché, naval attaché, military attaché, which is army attaché, are technically legal spies in the country.
Well, in Denmark, though, again, when you have a great partnership, the attachés. So I had my defense attaché, which oversees all of it.
Oh, okay.
Who happened to be Navy, but then we had a naval attaché and Air Force attaché, and certainly Marines, of course.
Right. Oh, the Marine Guards.
And Army. And Army
how many
attaché.
Marine Guards did you have at the embassy?
I think there were 8.
That's all?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all they did is stood there on the front.
They stand guard. So what we talk about this very much is that the Marines, in and out of uniform, are representing the United States everywhere they go.
That's correct.
So just like all the Americans serving overseas, I always said that you are the first. You are an American face, and you're all diplomats. You're all ambassadors in your own way. So you have to represent us everywhere you go. And the Marines, more than anybody else, owned that in such a professional way, and I just loved it. I mean, they're such a staple of the community.
Did they have a New Year's Eve ball?
We had the Marine Ball.
Marine Ball. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we sure did.
Oh, okay.
I have all sorts. I could have brought that stuff in today. I have all. I was always the honored guest at the Marine Balls for the 4 years that I was there.
Yeah. Well, that's understandable. You're the ambassador.
Yeah.
And when you left Denmark, you were awarded an award. It was called the Order of the Dannenberg.
Yeah, that's right.
And I have it right here because I want to show it. It comes in a nice red box. The Danish flag does have red in it. That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah, I know my flags.
That's right.
Too. That's what happens when you travel. You know your flags.
It's true.
You learn your flags. Okay, I'm going to open it.
Undo that.
Oh, yeah, undo that on the latch. I practice this, believe it or not. And this is, I don't know if I can, before anything falls out. And this is given to the ambassador.
That's right.
If you do a good job.
By the Queen.
By the Queen.
Yes.
And what's the Queen's name?
Margrethe.
Margrethe the
Yeah,
Second.
the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's right. It's a constitutional
monarchy. Yeah,
right.
just like the Brits.
Right.
And so this is actually it's sort of like a knighthood. So they call the Grand Cross of the Order of the Dannebrog.
There's different orders, though.
Yes, that's right.
There's the Cross of Honor, Grand Commanders of Vocation, Jewelers, and Goldsmiths, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right.
Yeah. So why do you want to run for Congress? Now that we've gotten the ambassadorship out of the way.
Sure. So it's the other part. So before I was an ambassador, I had the distinct honor and privilege of working for Barack Obama for 10 years. I worked for him for 10 years. The last 4 of which I was ambassador. I met Barack Obama in January 2007 at a party at Teddy Kennedy's Senate office.
Okay. In Washington D.C.
In Washington.
Okay.
Yeah, and that day, it was shortly after New Year's, just over 11 years ago. And coincidentally, I had just been offered a job from Hillary Clinton's campaign for 2008.
Okay.
And that same day, I met Obama. And I had a 2-minute conversation with him. Maybe it was even shorter. I don't remember how long it was. But when I met him, I essentially said that this is the guy I want to work for. This is the guy I want to support.
Okay.
I want to tell everyone from my parents who didn't think we were capable of this to our friends overseas and everyone else that we were capable of electing an African American president with the middle name Hussein. Right. At the time, if you remember 2007, which feels so different, we never saw this chapter in American political history, but we were in this sort of morass around the Iraq War, and the American, the faith and trust in government was quite low, not as low as it is right now.
Right.
And I thought the idea. Not only did I love his politics, but I felt that Barack Obama could be a transformational leader. And so I signed up with him and worked on both campaigns. And then I served overseas. And while I was overseas, it was really interesting as I got to have a conversation about what it meant to be American. And I'm a dedicated patriot, and I love this country, and I love our democracy.
People don't understand. The people in Washington, D.C. who work for government are dedicated patriots and very patriotic people.
Absolutely.
If they work for the CIA, State Department, or anything, they're very patriotic.
They are.
They may be liberal and they may be conservative, but they're very, very patriotic. There's a misconception that these people are not, because their fathers were in the military at one time, or they served in the military. It's that Virginia, Maryland area, very patriotic.
They're very patriotic. They grew up under the American flag, whether they were foreign service brats, what they call, grew up in military families or foreign service families or some sort of whatever it may be. Very dedicated to the country in a nonpartisan way. And I think that's what I loved about it. And having grown up here, of course, you don't have that same experience.
That's correct.
But when you did grow up in that culture, and it's rich. And the sad part is we don't need. We'll talk about that later.
And they're not ugly Americans when going overseas. They are selling America like you were as ambassador.
They were doing everything they possibly could to fight for American interests and sell the United States, and that's what their job was, and that's what they were trained to do, and they are the best and the brightest, both military and civilian.
It's in their psyche.
It is. And so, but when I was ambassador, I got to you'd have a conversation about the evolution of the country, and whether we were talking about an issue like healthcare, where I was serving in Denmark that had universal healthcare. Everybody has coverage.
That's from A to Z.
A to Z.
Dental work.
Yes, I'm not sure about. I do believe so. Dental might be supplemental, but regardless, you're taking care of older people are taken care of.
It's the happiest country in the world.
Happiest country in the world. But they could never figure out why it was such a big deal for us, how we couldn't get some sort of universal health care plan.
They can't understand that.
And but I could talk about the fact that yes, as Americans, we have had this debate about whether health care is a right or a privilege, right? But with Obamacare, and I was part of the early part of the administration where we helped pass Obamacare. It's a flawed. It's not a perfect law, but in my mind, it's a great step in the right direction. And but I could talk about the fact with Danes that sure, we came from this place where we had an enormous number of uninsured, but we were making making progress. And we were insuring now tens of millions of people who had not been insured before. This is progress. So we're moving actually in a direction where universal health care may be a reality in the United States. Same with issues like, say, climate change, with green jobs, with issues of equality. And I was proud of it. I was proud of being able to go to a high school classroom in Denmark and talk to 2,000 kids and have this conversation about what it meant to be American. And then the moment Trump was elected, I realized that I couldn't fundamentally have those same conversations that I was having before, because in my mind we had taken a step back on so many of these kind of critically important issues to the United States, whether that's, again, healthcare or climate or equality or immigration.
Which the whole world believes in. I mean, they believe in those things.
And the other thing that's important to acknowledge here, too, is that they look to us. And in the days and weeks and months before the election, they did. But they would say before the election, you know that when you vote, that you are voting for a president for all of us. And that's the way they view it in Europe. That the president of the United States is not, he or she is, of course, just the president of the United States. But we have to understand that role. That role has been a global leader and a global influencer in so many ways. And you look at a country like Denmark, where I was serving, you know, they lost the highest per capita number of troops in Afghanistan because they served alongside Americans in the aftermath of 9/11, and they acknowledge that sacrifice, and they're proud of their military service. But the fact of the matter is, they were there because of their partnership with Americans. And so we, as Americans, have to understand that that's our role in the world, and that is how other countries look at us. And so, the Trump election, I never thought I'd put my name on a ballot like I'm doing right now. I never thought that I'd come home and fight for this. But I just believe in it too much.
Seems like you have a passion.
Oh, I do. I'm fired up right now, and I'm excited. And I have to say, so I got back.
It's a great country.
Such a great country, and for all of our complexity. And I love, there's lots of reasons to hate our politics, and lots of reasons to hate or not hate, but lots of reasons to be frustrated by our democracy and our government. And I am frustrated by a lot of things that are happening right now, too. But, I have great faith that we can turn this around. And I just think I've been talking so much about participation. I've been talking so much about stepping up and service. And for me, this is about coming home and stepping up my level of service. And what I want to do is serve the people of Chelmsford, of the 3rd District. And try to be the kind of leader in Washington. And honestly, I think Nikki Tsongas has been a phenomenal congresswoman. And I look forward to doing everything I can to help follow in her shoes.
Now, the Lowell Sun and Fitchburg Sentinel is in your district. I mean, you kind of sort of have to win them over to a certain degree because they'll go after you if you're too liberal, I guess. And so you have to be cognizant of that, I think. And it's Fitchburg and Gardner are little separate. People in this area don't know that much about Fitchburg and Gardner. There's a state college in Fitchburg and there's a community college in Gardner. I mean, but they don't know these little, they're not attached. So how do you bring all those people together and the southern part of your district?
So I think it's a great question. And I think that a lot of people ask me that. So my district, this district, the 3rd District, has communities like Chelmsford. It also has Lawrence. It has Concord. It has Marlborough and Fitchburg and Gardner. It's a bit of a microcosm of the country. And, with different sort of some urban areas, some suburban areas, some wealthy communities, some less wealthy communities, some quite rural areas. And what I want to do in this campaign is not give a different message to the folks in Lawrence than you give in Concord, or the folks in Chelmsford that you might give in Marlborough. I actually think that in order for us to be the most successful, we need to present a unifying message to these people. And I fundamentally believe it's this, is that people in different communities will have different concerns. They will.
No doubt.
But there are still unifying themes that I think all Americans care about. And I think the ability to communicate in that way matters. And so what is it about to me? It's about concepts like community. So in every single city and town in this district, people care about each other, and people care about service to community.
And a lot of families are
strength of community.
interconnected.
Exactly.
You know, for ages.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
And we need to encourage that. We need to encourage every community to come together and help solve some of the challenges that are facing our society,
Right.
whether that is healthcare or immigration or infrastructure or opioids or any of these issues. And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about not what divides us, but actually what brings us together,
point.
the kind of messaging, the kind of narrative that people in every community throughout this district can respond to. Because I want this to be about people. We'll be doing a lot of talking to the newspapers and whatnot.
Right.
But fundamentally, what's going to determine this election are the voters. And the voters, and I believe this, I believe that the candidate who creates the best relationship with people, one-on-one, is the candidate that's going to win.
Right.
And that's what I want to try to do, and run district-wide, not just run in one part of the district or another, but run district-wide and try to have that kind of positive message.
A big issue in regards to the presidential campaign was immigration.
Sure.
And do we have people immigrating from Denmark to the United States?
Well, I think, as we heard the other day, that the president would love more people from Norway.
Norway, yeah.
Which is similar to Denmark.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the thing, is that, look, sure, there's plenty of Danes that want to come to the United States to study or even start a business.
Right.
It is.
They're a high-tech country.
They are, but look, their society is quite good. It's not, what's written on the Statue of Liberty is give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. It would be hard to make the argument that Danes are tired, poor, huddled masses. So the truth of the matter is that the at its core, American immigration policy is about taking in folks, having the United States be a shining beacon of hope for people who might be oppressed in their homeland, and to have greater opportunity in this country. Probably both our ancestors, when they came to this country, felt that way.
Everyone has a story.
Everybody has a story.
And you have to listen to every story. I mean, I hate to tell you,
but I love that.
Yeah, that's what. So do I. I love genealogy and listening to. I just want to say for a second,
Please.
I have Rufus Gifford. He's a candidate for Congress. In case you just tuned in, he was ambassador to Denmark. We talked about Denmark, and we did show his medal. In case you tuned in, I just want to show again. I'm pretty impressed by it. It was given to him by the Queen,
which I have to give back when I die.
Well, who would give that back to
I know.
you?
It's apparently that you have to give it back because it's the property of the Danish government. I'm just awarded it until.
Let me see. Made in Denmark. I don't see anything that says that.
We'll see. Exactly.
Yeah. So immigration's a big deal. I know health is a big. Education.
Yes.
A big,
education, a big deal. Affordability of education, quality of education.
If we educate people in Africa, I mean, then they won't come to the United States because they'll be doing very well in Africa.
Well, listen, we've invested. I mean, part of our foreign policy for the last 75 years, since the end of the Cold War, since the end of World War II, is actually to help rebuild certain parts of starting with the Marshall Plan, where we helped rebuild war-torn Europe post World War II, and that was to do exactly what you said to a certain extent, to rebuild those communities so they could be stronger domestically. And so there is a role to be played in what I think what you are defining as foreign aid. It's not a particularly politically popular.
But I think foreign aid because I lived in the diplomatic community. I understand the meaning of foreign aid in regards to military foreign aid, in regards to maintenance and parts. Because if you sell a plane, they need the parts. So you have sort of them in your. I shouldn't say back pocket, but technically
it's about partnership.
Strategic.
It's
strategic.
It's a partnership. It is, and it's you can't say enough about where the United States has built our goodwill for the last 75 years, since the end of World War II, because we have invested in the world, because we've spent money, we've cared about these countries, we've made some high-profile mistakes, but the fact of the matter is, we've had so many more successes than we have.
I wanted to talk to you about North Korea, but I mean, we just have 30 seconds.
Oh no!
I know we could take 2 hours.
We could take about Well, it's a huge challenge. I will say that I learned. I think